Hey guys, how's it going? Kevin Cleary here with a first impressions video on something new from Begg knives. So for those of you who are not familiar, Begg knives has been around for a while. It used to be Todd Begg and Mark Begg. Since that time, they've had a bit of a falling out, and Begg Knives has retained the designs, and Todd Begg has sort of gone his separate ways. Um, yeah, I'm not going to try to even get into the whole convoluted history. I don't know all the details. I don't really care to know all the details. I do know they've had a lot of knives over the years that I have really appreciated. Um, Not the least of which is this one right here. This is the Astio. And I have to tell you, there are a number of reasons I was curious about this. First of all, I've had some of these knives before. I've had a Bodega from the Steelcraft series. I've had a Glimpse from the Steelcraft series. Obviously, I've never had any of the mid-tech offerings. I guess Bag Knives is probably most known for the mid-tech stuff. This is, if you have mid-tech and then the Steelcraft series, if you have custom mid-tech Steelcraft, and then this is sort of the most budget offering from Bag Knives, and you can sort of tell a little bit, but overall these are really well done. And I'll be honest, they didn't have everything available, or Justin didn't have everything available over at White Mountain Knives, which is where I got this. I think they still have some Astios. If you want one, you can use my discount code Sharp Stuff and save yourself 10% off. That also helps the channel as well. So my main question here with this knife is, is it any good, right? To get to the $120 price point, did they cut too many corners to be worth, worth the effort? Pick this up. I've been carrying it, flicking it, checking it out for a day or so, and I have to say my overall impression is, they've done a pretty nice job on this knife, and that makes me really want a Bodega. And so, I'll talk about exactly why that is. To start off, let's just do a quick rundown um, of the features here. All right, some of them you'll be able to see right away. So we've got this clip point, harpoon point, clip point, blade, compound grind. We've got the very bag-like fuller with holes in it. People have noticed that already. It's a pretty famous feature for Bag Knives. I will say I do like this grind quite a lot. Compound grinds, I think I've said this in a recent video, but I just love the way they catch the light. And I also love the performance. By far, my favorite way of grinding a blade is a hollow grind for this main cutting portion, and then that nice standard grind, a flat grind out here at the tip to give a little more strength. It really delivers the best of both worlds. And so, yeah, absolutely my favorite way of seeing a knife blade done. And so a lot of my favorite knives have had this kind of grind, but you don't see it all the time. And I'm definitely a fan of hollow grinds over flat grinds. They definitely, I know I'm going to get pushback on this, but they absolutely cut better because there ends up being less of the blade surface in contact with the material you're cutting. And then on the other side, if you're cutting, let's say, wood or something like that, you end up with this very thin edge that just bites into the material so well. I know this is more detail than we normally get into on a first impressions, but I thought it was worth mentioning because of the fact that when I did a little checking, it looks like all of these are going to be hollow ground. So that's one of the reasons that I want a Bodega, because I really want that aggressive hollow grind. I absolutely love that way of grinding a blade. All right, but to me, it looks as if the Glimpse is also hollow ground. Now, I can't say that the Quaken is for sure. In fact, I'm inclined to say that it's not. But the Astio, the Bodega, and the Glimpse look to be hollow ground. It's D2 steel, so not my first choice, but they've done a really nice job finishing it. And if you're going to do D2 steel, a satin finish is helpful because it just helps with corrosion resistance. So definitely nice to see a satin finish on this D2 steel. Moving down, we have a bearing pivot, and we have a variation, I guess, of the lock type that Bag Knives often does. Now on the full custom, this whole piece would just come off. It was a separate piece altogether. Here, there's sort of like a G10 overlay and then our steel clip on top of that. So it's still a pretty neat way of constructing a knife, and I really, really like that detail. What I especially like, and I also love how they've done sort of an over travel stop. And this is one of the things that I always felt like was missing from the Steelcraft series. All right. The thing that made Begg knives different and interesting was this variation of this alternative way of doing your lock, and the way that how they've carried this over even onto this budget line is really, really compelling to me. So that's one of the big reasons that I'm pretty excited to be able to get a bodega from this. Now the glimpse is going to be too small for me, but I definitely want to own the Astio and the bodega. And I feel like you guys are getting sick of me talking about a different knife that I'm actually reviewing here, but I wanted to bring it up. So then it's G10. It's nicely done G10, 3D contoured, a bit of patterning here. The same is true. The sort of 3D machining is carried over to the lock side as well. Very, very comfortable. The ergonomics on this are really, really impressive. It just locks into your hand, feels so good. That point alone is almost worth the price of admission. It's just great ergonomics. Now this blade is not going to be everybody's taste. It's a pretty dramatic blade shape, and is going to have limited utility. And I know in the knife world, one of the things you generally see people not enjoying are recurve blades. All right. Because they can be difficult to sharpen. Now, if you kind of know what you're doing, it's not that bad. But a lot of people are using stones, or they have limited capabilities with their sharpening setup, because most of us spend all our money on knives, so we don't have any money for our sharpening setup. And because of that, recurves are not very popular. This does have a recurve. It's a pretty nicely done recurve. I think it suits the design very well, but I get that it's not going to be everybody's taste. Finally, let's touch on, I think I've pretty well gone. The only thing I don't think I mentioned was the G10 backspacer, which this has. Okay. And there's a small lanyard hole there as well. So having said all that, let's do a quick rundown on size. This is 8.25 inches. So essentially the same size as a pair of two. 3.5 inch blade, which is a little more than a pair of two. 4 7/8 when closed, which is pretty nice. The fact this comes in under 5 inches is pretty appealing. All right. Finally, the grip area is nice as well at 3 3/4 inches. Even for my size large hands, there's lots of real estate there. My thumb lands really nicely in that little hollow created by the harpoon shape. The weight on this is a little hefty because if you look at this side, there's quite a lot of steel here. It is milled out to save on some of that weight. Hold on. What have I got that I can use to show it to you there? I'm getting a light ready, guys. I just didn't want it on full brightness. It's still too bright. Hold on. There we go. Let's try it this way. I don't know if you can see in there. There we go. You can see the milling in there now. Okay, so pretty nice touch. It's milled out to save weight, but it still weighs in at 4.8 ounces, which is pretty hefty for a knife of this size. Not the end of the world. You guys know, I don't really, I honestly don't care unless it's like so absurdly heavy that it's awkward to carry. And to get to that point for me is pretty difficult to do, considering I regularly carry a cold steel Formax. Okay, so that is, it's a little heavy for its size, but not a big deal. Overall, I think this is a really, really nice budget alternative. I love that they included sort of this very Begg style lock side. And this is one of the knives that I've always felt this way about the Bodega. It's one of those knives, and a lot of Begg knives in general, they look better on the lock side than they do on what's supposed to be the show side. All right. And I think this knife certainly falls into that category. I'm really, really impressed with this, and I'm glad that it came off well, because, my fear was in getting this that, this would be crappy and then I would be disappointed about the potential for the other knives. But the fact that this is good gives me a lot of hope. And so I'm really, really excited about picking up some of the other knives in this series. Thanks a lot for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to check those sponsors in the description box, especially, if you're going to pick up one of these, head over to White Mountain Knives, use my discount code. That does help out the channel a whole lot. Again, thank you for watching. We will talk to you soon.